Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. So I really want to start doing recent reads with you guys because I just feel like I don't talk enough about all of the things that I read or enough of the things that I read, and then time passes and I really want to talk shit about it, but I feel like it's too distant, I've lost the time, you know what I mean? So much happens and I'm just like, do you guys even really know how much I read? And I don't get to talk to you about, because here's the thing, if it's not a favourite book or it's not a book in a themed vlog, of which I don't do that many because I'm a sporadic poster, like you won't really see it, you won't really hear about it, you won't really talk about it. And I do read a lot of books that I enjoy and a lot of books that actually I think are quite not that well known. And I think like I want to share my opinions on them and let you guys find out about these books. And also just to share my opinions on books in general, like that's the whole point of this channel, do you know what I mean? So we're going to start doing recent reads, hopefully, fingers crossed. As I said, I'm a sporadic poster, okay? I know my condition. We're going to start right now. This is in the beginning of the year recent reads, actually. I'm going to skip forward ahead a bit till about around February time because I kind of did a themed reading challenge. It wasn't a challenge, I was just like, oh, I really want to read in this theme. And so I just think it'll be really good for me to like wrap up this theme in one whole separate recent reads video, and that's what this is. Now, not to be coy, that theme was Lunar New Year. Now, that's because it was Lunar New Year, and I'm just that sort of person now. And nowadays, I don't know what's happened. I just love a theme. I love theming my life. So if something is impacting my life, I love making it a theme. Or if something comes across, I'm like, oh, let me just like deep dive into it. So Lunar New Year came up and I love observing Lunar New Year. I'm lucky to live in London where we have Chinatown, and so there's always celebrations every year, and I usually go with my friend or my family, and I just find myself in Chinatown a lot. I'm not gonna lie, like Chinatown has been like a real base of like my hangouts. For some reason, it's in Soho, or it's right by Soho. I don't have the exact geographical locations as to whether you would call Chinatown Soho, but I would personally. It's like White Day. It's like White Day. So yeah, Lunar New Year came up and I didn't actually manage to like do anything this year that massive for it this year. So I was like, let me do my reading, and that will help me feel more, you know, like, yes, this is Lunar New Year time. Do you know what I mean? Whilst I'm drinking my Ovaltine, actually, this is a Lunar New Year mug that I purchased this year. So to start us off, I'm going to show you a book that I hauled for this, and I hauled this massive chonker. I don't even think it comes across like how thick it is on camera, but it is super thick, like it's super big. And that is because it's the story of China, a portrait of a civilization and its people by Michael Wood. Now, already from the title, from the name Michael Wood, this man is not Chinese. He's not Chinese. And I did investigate that. I was like, do I really want to read, like, why wouldn't I just read from someone who is Chinese themselves? But at the same time, like, I did research into it, and I was like, yeah, do you know what, I'll give it a go. I did give it a go, but I didn't end up finishing it because it is so huge. And I ended up reading more fiction books. And also, like, Lunar New Year isn't that long of a period of time, do you know what I mean? So I kind of didn't have that long to read everything I wanted to read. However, I've got this book now, and I can refer to it whenever I need to, or whenever I want to, more importantly. I did have the audiobook available to me on Everand, but again, as I said, limited amount of time to read everything that I wanted to read. So I got that, and I got that from Waterstone's local bookshop as well. Because as I said, I'm trying not to buy from Jeff anymore. So there we go. I do kind of love like the cover of this, not gonna lie. I think it's like a nice paperback. It does also have lots of pictures, which pictures are key. There was another non-fiction book that I was thinking about, and I think it was like Britain and China, and it was basically examining the relationship between Britain and China. But I thought, do you know what, before we get into like relationships, geopolitical relationships with other countries, or with the country that I live in specifically, let me just get a history of China. Do you know what I mean? Because China has such a long history. That's why, even though this is basically a brief history, we're covering 4,000 years here, people. Because, like, if you think about it, how many books are written on, like, Mao, or the Tiananmen Square massacre, or, like, other historical events in China. Do you know what I mean? So, this is very much a brief 4,000 years, babe. Yeah, no. You could have a book, there are books literally written about months, like a month. You literally have history books that are about particular year. Like 1968 has a whole book called 1968. Do you know what I mean? So this is a brief history. But the first series that I read, I didn't finish the series, but spoiler alert, I read a couple of books in them. And that is this series by Jeannie Lin, called The Lotus Palace is the first book. That's not the name of the series, The Lotus Palace. And I absolutely ate this up because it's a historical mystery romance series, okay? And it's important to say all of those words to describe it, because I do feel like it is quite evenly split between historical, romance and mystery. As someone who loves mysteries, loves historical things, like all things historical, and who loves mysteries, we are firmly in my wheelhouse, so it was always going to be a hit. And I did have to dig this book out. Like, I remember I was really searching this whole, like, all of my reading for this, I really had to search and specifically seek out these books. These books weren't offered to me on a plate. The only book that was served to me on a plate from like a East Asian author was Anna Huang, I believe her name is, who wrote like the King series, some billionaire series, and I'm not interested, to be quite honest with you. I don't like billionaire romances. Sorry. I do actually accept that black billionaire stories have a slightly different historical impact. Like, I can take it a little bit more, but I'm just not. Anyway, besides the point. So I researched, and I found this, and it's just firmly in my wheelhouse, and I absolutely loved it. I gave it 5 stars. Now, this is my major push in this video, okay? If you're gonna read any book, out of all of the books I tell you about, please read this book, because this book does not have that many readers. It doesn't. And I think it panned in the eyes of the publisher, because I do believe, like, the author doesn't publish that much in this series anymore. Doesn't really publish that much anymore, again, because I think her work is being viewed as panning. And I do believe I saw something on her Instagram when she was talking about, like, oh, even though it critically panned, like, it's doing all right for itself, something like that. I can't really remember, so I'll put it on the screen right now. And I say all of that to say, like, this book is absolutely fabulous and fantastic. And I do believe that if it wasn't Chinese, it would have done a lot better. I do believe that. I do believe there's some racism. I do believe that if this book was set in England, so we're talking a English, let's say Regency period, because this isn't Regency, this is ancient history. But if we were talking Regency, historical, romance, mystery, it would have popped off. And I know that for a fact, because that's the wheelhouse that I firmly read in, and this is just as good to stand amongst the giants in my particular wheelhouse. Do you know what I mean? That's why I'm like, I don't even think, you know what I mean? I know this genre, and this is a good one, right? So if you like those kind of books, read it. So let me tell you what it's about, rather than just wax lyrical. So basically, this is set in the Chang dynasty. Okay, for some reason, a reason that I'm not quite sure of, I don't understand, I've got like a CH at the beginning of my T's in this video. So I keep saying Chang, when actually it's Tang. Basically, I've gone down a whole rabbit hole on how you pronounce the Tang dynasty. Apparently, the language that they spoke at this time is called Middle Chinese, which is closer to Cantonese than Mandarin. How that helps me right now, I don't know, but I think basically you're supposed to pronounce it tongue. So every time I pronounce it, please know that I'm pronouncing it wrong. Thank you. We can continue now. I believe in ancient China. I don't know if they call it ancient China, to be honest with you. I told you guys, I don't really know that much about the Chinese history, but I do believe this is set somewhere around, we don't ever get given dates like that, to be honest with you, but I do believe this is the Chang dynasty, or the Tang dynasty, Tang dynasty, was in the eras of 600 to 700. And where this book is set in Pingkang Li is like very much for the arts, for the culture. It's full of scholars, and that's the kind of vibe. It's very much like an entertainment district, entertainment area. And we follow, the main people who we follow through this are courtesans. I can't remember, I'm actually going to look up their official name that she calls them in the book, because I do want to make sure I use the terminology right, because she does have a note at the beginning basically saying these are not geishas, okay? Please do not call them geishas, because that's not right. Oh yes, to call them simply prostitutes would be incorrect. To call them courtesans seems insufficient. Okay, so it says, So even when I called them courtesans, I was wrong. And Chinese geishas is a term that ignores the fact that China developed a rich and distinctive courtesan culture that predated the geisha culture in Japan. Okay, she does call them courtesans, but they're not just courtesans, and I think that's what she's trying to get at, and that is true. Like, basically, we see that these women are very, very cultured, very educated, like, very highly esteemed women, right? Who are specifically trained to be kind of hostesses, companions, so that they're able to talk with these scholars on a level, right? So the scholars can talk to them. So basically, they're part scholar, part musician, because they have to be able to play music to entertain. They are also part politician, part like MC. You know what I mean? Like, lots of things are tied into this job, but also a courtesan. And so there's this very intricate relationship into how they're viewed in society. Scholars and the people in society, they write and wax lyrical about these women in terms of, like, they'll write poetry about them, they'll draw them, like, very much revered in one sense, but in the other sense, they are very controlled. They don't have much freedom outside of their specific, like, roles that they hold in society. They're beholden to their, like, I'm going to use Western terminology, like the mistress of the house, and actually the men don't really respect them, but, like, what's new? Do you know what I mean? That's not specific to them, but that's the whole setup of the background of this entire series, right? So the world in this, right, in this series, the way that it's built is just so vivid, and you really immerse yourselves into this culture, into this time period, into the way of life, and it is really interesting. And watching the dynamics at play of the society is just so good, right? But then actually for this first book, we follow a maidservant whose name is Yu Ying. She's a servant to one of these courtesans. That's the word I'm going to use. I'm sorry if it's wrong, right? But she's a servant to one of the beauties, okay? And she's happy in her role, and she is, like, she's quite content doing her duties until she meets and runs into an aristocrat's son and infamous playboy airhead kind of guy, Bai Huang. And she don't like him, putting it frank. She meets him, she's like, who's this airheaded man, like, whatever. But they are thrown together because of deadly circumstances. Somebody dies and they have to solve the mystery together, or they're forced to kind of solve this mystery together, and it just goes from there. And so in all of these books, we're going to follow a relationship, and we are going to also have a mystery going alongside it. And there is a balance of the two. It's not just like, okay, well, we're just here for the romance, we're just here for the mystery. It's a balance between the two. It's very much My Fair Lady-esque. It's also Pretty Woman. So if you are someone, I love Pretty Woman. My sister loves My Fair Lady, okay? So clearly we're partial to these kind of storylines. So if you like that kind of storyline, you will like this book, okay? I'm really setting up this book to tell you if you're the type of reader who's going to enjoy it or not. So if you're not someone who enjoys My Fair Lady or Pretty Woman, and I'm not saying that there's not flaws in those concepts. Obviously we've got the power dynamics of class and all of that going on, but if you don't like that, then these aren't the books for you. But if you do, but I don't actually understand why, because they're actually just great. They're actually just great stories. And there's a reason why My Fair Lady and Pretty Woman are so popular, because people love them. And I also think that it's really important to note that this book is aware of a lot of the issues that it grapples with. There are trigger warnings, because essentially the women are sex workers. Throughout this entire series, we are following sex workers. And personally for me, I love reading about stories about sex workers, because sex work is work. And I do believe in, like, sex workers' rights. I do, absolutely. So, you know, it's not all sunshine and rainbows. It's really not all sunshine and rainbows. Because, do you know what? Life's tough. Life's hard. Especially if you're a sex worker, right? And obviously, the way that sex workers are viewed differs, and obviously the way that the sex workers, as in these courtesans, are viewed isn't the same necessarily as how you would view a prostitute, or not me, maybe not even you, but how some people view prostitutes. You know, it's still conversation around that's delicate. And also sex work that's not necessarily wholly freely chosen. And another thing is abuse and all sorts of gritty stuff. Like, this is a gritty book that, like, books that deal with mysteries, obviously you're going to have death as a trigger warning, but there are others, so I would urge you to look them up before you read it. But absolutely 5 stars. Amazing. Like, I ran through this book. I read it in like one night, one sitting. I was like, absolutely. Bought the next one because I have to. They're not getting no unlimited. You have to buy them. And I bought the next one, and I bought the next one, and I just ran through this entire series. I was literally obsessed. It literally became my personality for a hot minute, as it should be, as it freaking should be. So good. 10 out of 10. Books and text work. Pretty Woman, My Fair Lady-esque vibes. The vibes are very different. Just storyline, just like power dynamics, but the vibes are uber different. We're talking about ancient China, remember? So the vibes are not the same. Like, if you love a historical, give it a go. If you're a historical romance reader or a historical mystery reader, right, I would urge you to pick this series up. Friggin' fantastic. And I hope I did that justice. I really do. I really do. But yeah, the next book that I read, I went back to like a mystery. I'm nothing if we're not predictable. For my own ease, I continued on a series that I was already reading, which is the Noodle Shop mystery series. I'm pretty sure you might have heard of this if you read cozy mysteries, because it's quite a big cozy mystery series. It's just like a good solid cozy mystery series. However, I will say the one that I read was called Wonton Terror, and I do think it's the weakest in this series so far. Will I continue? I do think so. Mainly because I'm not paying for the books individually. I am able to get the audiobooks on Everand Scribd. And I do fear that after reading this last book, if I had had to buy the book, I wouldn't have done it. I think I would have DNF'd this series, which is kind of sad, because I do think that the first book was really well done. But I did look in the reviews, and I think someone else said it was the weakest book for them so far. So I'm hoping that it will come back up. It will rise back up. And I just kind of have to push through this lull of a book, if that makes sense. So what is the Noodle Shop mystery series about? Basically, we follow our main character. Sorry, it's been a while since I read the first book, but I believe she has to return back to her town. Her family owns a noodle shop, and at first she does not want to work at her family noodle shop. She really doesn't, but I believe she just broke up with her boyfriend. I believe she's moved back into town. I believe she's lost her job, and so she has to help out in her family's noodle shop. And at first she really resents this. She really does not want to do this. But then someone turns up dead in the noodle shop, and she has to solve it, because while she doesn't work at her family noodle shop, she's going to defend it. She is going to defend it. And then obviously she actually finds out that she does like being a sleuth, and also, spoiler alert, likes working with her family. There is also a romance going through the series as well, as most cozy mysteries do. It's just a good time, like, guys, it's just a good time. I'm opening up Goodreads to see if there's anything else in the synopsis that I've missed off, but I don't believe so. Oh, okay, I'll read you my review. I wrote a review back in the day. I gave it 3 stars, but 3 stars for me is fine. Like, 3 stars is good, because 2.5 stars is like, that's all right, that's fine. 3 stars is like, yeah, that's good. And you can tell that by my review that I'm about to give. So I said, Death by Dumpling was a good introduction to this series. I can already tell I will finish it this year. Wah, wah, wah. I wrote this in 2022. We're now in 2025. Babe, you're ambitious. Although, to be fair to me, the audiobooks only just came out of the books later on in this series. I did fly through the first 3, all of the ones that are available to me in 2022 at the time. I didn't know I was going to be waiting for audiobooks. Anyway, it had a good mix of mystery, culture and food. Way to get me interested. Do you know what I mean? So it's just like a good solid book. I was absolutely spot on about Death and Dumplings, wasn't I? I was absolutely spot on. The only thing that you need to know is that the person who died was the person the landlord of their restaurant. I do believe he was a dick, as is usual. Like, it's not the most original cozy mystery plotline, but like, the thing is, you don't go to a cozy mystery for an original storyline. You just don't. So it was a good time. Then, oh my goodness, no, this is another book that I really enjoyed. So I next read 2 picture books for this whole challenge, I guess. I mean, I don't want to call it a challenge, because it's not a challenge. It's just the fact that I like to read on a theme, and this theme would encourage me to read East Asian books, specifically Chinese books. I really just read Chinese books, but do you know what I mean? It's fine. It's fine. You know, there's only so many books I can read for one little thing. So next up, I read Eyes That Kiss, The Corners, and then afterwards I read its sequel, Eyes That Weave the World's Wonders. Absolutely. So I saw these books ages ago on this particular Bookstagram account, and she recommends children's books and specifically picture books for lots of different family dynamics, right? And I absolutely love her account. So she'll show all different families, all different characteristics, and she'll find picture books that are suitable for the kids to read, right? Really diversifying picture books. One of the ones that she had put back then was Eyes That Kiss the Corners, and she might even put it for, you know, books talking about self-confidence issues or appreciating yourself as an Asian person in a predominantly white country. Because really and truthfully, that is what it is. So the title, Eyes That Kiss in the Corners, is basically referring to our main character's eyes, who she compares her eyes to the people surrounding her in her class. So she's got someone in her class whose eyes are round like the moon and blue like the sapphires. Hers are eyes that kiss in the corners, just like her mother and her grandmother and her sister. And it basically is just a book that is dedicated to teaching young Asian people to embrace, right, a part of themselves that has been, let me just talk historically, been ridiculed, and they may find themselves be picked on in school, especially if it's a predominantly white school or non-Asian school or non-East Asian as well, right? Let's get into it, because listen, diaspora wars happen, and not only diaspora wars, but like person of colour wars happen, you know what I mean? Just because someone's a person of colour doesn't mean that they can't be racist towards Asian people, and vice versa doesn't mean Asian people can't be racist towards black people, you know? So I just absolutely loved it. I would highly recommend this book to any person who has a young Asian person in their life, or even part Asian person in their life. And I take that back, I would also recommend this to any kids. If you have a kid in your life, right, I would recommend it, because do you know what, your child could be racist. I'm just putting it out there, your child could be racist, inadvertently so, right? Or your niece, your nephew, your Sam could be racist, all right? Or you just need to have those conversations with them, with the child, about, you know, differences. Yeah, people are different, people look different, and that's okay, and that's beautiful, okay? Your eyes are beautiful, and so are their eyes, and it's just fantastic. And everything is written in like this super beautiful metaphor, and similes, and the way that she talks about it throughout, and the imagery that's on the pages is just stunning. It was one of the most beautiful, like lyrically and visually, picture books that I've ever read. Freaking fantastic. Which is why I gave it 5 stars and read the next one, Eyes That Weave the World's Wonders. Now this one felt more like a cash grab. Sorry, I'm just gonna be honest. It felt more like capitalizing on the other one's success. Still valid, don't get me wrong, still valid, but not as good as the first one. Don't show hands up. Do you know what I mean? I still rated it fine, like it was still like a 3 stars. Like it was. Sorry to interject again, I just thought that I would add, the second book isn't a direct sequel, it actually follows a slightly different scenario, and what we have is a East Asian person who has been adopted by a white family, and so therefore it's a reckoning with the fact that her eyes look different to the rest of her family's, whereas in the first one it was more about your eyes and your family's eyes compared to people outside of the home, whereas this is talking about the relationships between interracial adoption. Picture book has to have a message. I personally, my taste in picture books are picture books that have a message. So if we're looking at my favourite picture books, we've got My Shadow is Purple, message book. We've also got this one, which is also another message book. Do you know what I mean? So it really does depend on what you want. And then I only managed to read one more thing for Lunar New Year, which, to be honest, like, I don't know why I'm saying one more thing, because so far I've read 3 books, a novella, and 2 picture books, okay? And I've bought another book. So I really have represented Lunar New Year quite well. I don't know why I'm saying only, but I suppose you have to end somewhere. And I am going to end on a good note. So the final book that I have literally only just finished, which is another reason why I haven't filmed this video beforehand, because it did take me a while to finish it, and that is Betraying Big Brother. Let me find what the subtitle of this book is called, because as I said, I do think the subtitles in non-fiction books are important. Now, obviously, I had to read a non-fiction book because, as I said, I'm nothing if not predictable. Non-fiction, mystery, romance. That is pretty much going to be the structure in any of my videos. You'll find that structure, right? So I actually do think like the books that I have read have spanned a wide range of Chinese experiences. We've had historical China, we've had the Chinese diaspora, and now we are having modern feminist China. I'm actually getting gassed looking back on my reading. I'm actually like, do you know what? 5 stars to you, babe. But as I said, this was intentional. I had to search up. I was on the internet typing, and I always make that clear. Anyway, let's get back to Betraying Big Brother. This is called Betraying Big Brother: The Feminist Awakening in China by Lita Hong Fincher. So, and this book basically recounts the Feminist Five in China who, on the eve of International Women's Day, so somewhere around March, so it was very topical as well, because as I said, it took me a while to read this, so I actually read this over International Women's Day, so the anniversary of when this happened. But yeah, on the eve of International Women's Day in 2015, the Chinese government arrested 5 feminist women, and they were jailed for a period of time. I can't remember exactly how long for, but like, you know, a not insignificant amount of time before they were released. According to Goodreads, 37 days, right? And so this book basically goes into that. It goes into the how, the who, the when, and the why of it all. And it also goes into the after effects, the before, the after. We find out more about each of the women individually, their histories, how they came to be a feminist, but not only a feminist activist, because there's very much a difference between being a feminist and making that your whole cause, because all of these women were activists. They weren't just feminists, right? And it also does expose you into the ways of the Chinese government, and how they reacted to the feminist movement, and how they decided they wanted to crush it, you know, as opposed to embracing women trying to fight for female rights. They weren't. So also you find out a lot about the nature of women's rights in China at the time of this book, because you obviously have to know about that to know what the women are fighting, which is really interesting. We also learn, so this is called Betraying Big Brother, because we also learn about like some of the techniques that the Chinese government used to try and suppress the feminists, particularly like using social media and WeChat and other sort of social media apps and trying to quell their actions there, as well as obviously physically arresting them, jailing them, but also threatening their husbands, their families, their kids, their partners. You know, it was a lot. And yeah, it took me a while to read this book, not gonna lie. This book was published by Verso, in case you want to know, and it did take me a while to read this book. Not because it wasn't good, but it did just take me a while. I do also think that I only listened to it on audio, which was kind of a struggle for me, because I do think at times I personally struggled to differentiate the women that we were talking about, like I just did. But if you ask me, that's very much a me, Western idiot woman. Do you know what I mean? That felt to me almost, I was side-eyeing myself, like, don't be racist, do you know what I mean? Like, but I do think it's partly because of how I consume this book. I think if I was reading the names, I would have been able to differentiate the women more. Also, I think the activities I was doing as I was listening to this audiobook, not all books are best set up for an audiobook if you want to retain every piece of information, right? There's audiobooks that you want to take in and absorb the information, but kind of let the information flow out of you. And I think that was kind of how I clocked quite early on that was the way that I was listening to this. And if I wanted to have like retained this information or really utilize this information, then I would have had to read it differently. But I didn't, and I continued to read it the way that I did. And I do think there was an article, I haven't read the article, but I saw someone talking about the article, and they're basically saying, like, you don't have to hoard information, babe. Like, some books you read just to let them change you, and that's enough. You don't have to be able to quote it word for word. You don't have to be able to recite it or give an a great like rundown of everything that happened in the book. Sometimes you can just let a book change you, be changed by it, and move on. And I think that's kind of like my reading experience with this book. I listened to it, I absorbed it, I let it change me, I let it impact my thoughts on the feminist movement in China. It really did inform me, but like I wouldn't feel confident in telling you all of the stats, figures of what happened, but I do have broad strokes understanding now, and that's important. Obviously this book is semi-dated because it happened in 2015, but just think of it more of a history now as opposed to a current book. Do you know what I mean? And I know that sounds crazy, but no, because 2015 is 10 years ago now. It's a decade ago. So, oh my god, was it literally the 10th decade this year of this? Yeah, it must have been. I literally read this over the 10th decade of it happening. So yeah, as I said, view this book as a history, not as a current examining of the women's rights movement in China. I can imagine things aren't going great, but that's a supposition. Is that the right word? On my part. And yeah, so that's everything that I read for Lunar New Year. I actually feel very, very proud of myself. It was all based around China. I do recognise that. So, but you know what? Listen, I'm literally only 22. Next year, I can choose another country that celebrates Lunar New Year and deep dive into them. I didn't have to do everything for everyone all at once, especially because I was just reading for my own pleasure and my own joy. Like, give yourself a goddamn break, babe. You don't have to be everything for everyone all at once. You've got the rest of your life to read about and from other cultures. You know what I mean? And just like how you've chosen this moment to deep dive in China because of Lunar New Year, you can deep dive on other countries at another moment in time. So, I'm not doing an official reading around the world, but I do kind of like want to like make note of it unofficially, and I would absolutely say China covered. Tick the box. Obviously, you can never fully tick the box because like keep reading from these places, but you understand what I'm saying. Anyway, I hope you guys like this initial recent reads update. Gosh, I'm still not even close to updating you on everything that I've read, but you gotta start somewhere, and this is where I've chosen to start. I'll see you guys soon. Bye guys.